I would say the breath.
The breath. Okay.
Yeah, I think breath awareness is really important. I think, we're in stress and tension a lot, and we tend to restrict or hold our breath, and we don't even realize it.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Optimum Human Podcast. My name is Brian McKay, he's Claude Petroulis, and we are your hosts of the Optimum Human Podcast. Today's guest is none other than Mr. Tim Norton. Tim, how are you this morning?
Great, thanks. Excited to be on here, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely, glad to have you. And Claude, sir, how are you?
Doing well. I'm fully combobulated, and
You're not discombobulated?
I'm not yet. Wait for about like 10 minutes, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, no, our intro, I love it, but sometimes I feel like, welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast. We're your hosts of the Optimum Human Podcast, and I'm like, we need like a third Optimum Human Podcast in there, just like
Everything comes
extra.
in threes. Well, you just did it there, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
So
this
it's
will
like
be our new
redundancy.
intro. Right?
Yeah, redundancy is the king of all like big corporations and stuff like that. So
Are we
maybe
a big
not in this
corporation? Not
we
yet.
could be. People don't know. We could own like Dell or whatever, or Microsoft.
We do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
We do.
Sorry, Tim.
Bill Gates is my right hand man.
Yeah, I could see that. He looks like a good like puppet. He looks puppetish. Sorry, Bill.
Bill,
send
don't kill me, please.
don't send like a special ops black ops team to like
a
to
vaccine
ruin our
drone.
Yeah, vaccine. Here, Brian, Claude, you want vaccines for free? No.
Peace out.
All right.
Oh, shit.
Anyways,
All right. So Tim, can you give our listeners some structure and maybe some some answer of the question of what you do?
All right. So my own health and wellness journey brought me to facilitating others in health and wellness, and I do that through massage therapy. I'm moving away from that, but so now mostly Rolfing, structural integration, body work, movement education, and I also do sound meditation. So basically, it's health and wellness through the nervous system.
beautiful.
All right,
Now,
all right.
you said that you're moving away from massage therapy and moving into Rolfing. Now, I was under the impression that Rolfing was a type of massage therapy. Am I wrong there?
Oh, it's a type of manual therapy.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of grouped in together, but it's a little bit different from massage.
All right, could you break that down for us?
For sure. Yeah. So Rolfing is not really a set of techniques, but rather a philosophy or framework for viewing the body and working with the human body to increase awareness and try to get people out of pain and moving better and feeling better, increasing awareness of their breath and their body, how they hold and carry themselves through life. And so we do movement assessment, we do postural and gait assessment. We do work on a massage table, and then we also do standing and moving work, and we do work on a structural integration bench. We don't use any lotions or oils. We typically don't work like full body in one session. We kind of work systematically throughout the body over a series of sessions, and we're maintaining a comprehensive and holistic view of the body throughout each session.
Okay, very cool. Now, I imagine most of our listeners are kind of already into the holistic realm and have probably experienced massage before. But for somebody that has never had a massage before, what are like the real key benefits to massage or manual therapy or Rolfing or that blanket or umbrella of techniques?
Why should people do it, man?
I would say the main thing is calming down the nervous system and increasing body awareness. So our brain has cortical maps that kind of maps out where our body is in space, kind of keeps track of where everything is. And a lot of times if we experience pain or discomfort, in our body, these cortical maps kind of become fuzzy or blurry. This is also tied into interoception, so kind of feeling the body from within, from the outside, or from the inside out. And so massage or body work, manual therapy, especially with an experienced practitioner, can kind of retrace these cortical maps, increasing body awareness and kind of reminding us of where we are in space, how our body can take up space, and that can result in feeling more comfortable and more at ease in our bodies.
So just kind of overall calmness, as well as potentially pain reduction and our ability to kind of feel where we are in space and time.
Right. Yeah. I would say that's the main thing. A lot of people go into talking about lengthening tissues and stuff, and that's something I've kind of gotten away from and don't really subscribe to as much. I think in our culture and society, our nervous systems are always kind of taxed and kind of ramped up. We're often in fight or flight, and so our nervous system kind of perceives threats from our environments or from activities or from past injuries or traumas, and this kind of correlates to a lot of discomfort and uneasiness in our bodies. And if we can increase our awareness of our body, then we can feel more comfortable and more at ease. Basically, I think we all just need to kind of have a chance to chill out, calm down, and have something that brings more awareness to our mind and our body and those connections. And I think manual therapy is a great way to work with that.
So I thought you were about to say mushrooms.
That can be helpful too.
I say, so tequila is not the best way to calm ourselves down?
No, not if you're me. I'll just be partying my ass off.
It calms me down, man. I love tequila, but I only drink that 100% agave. That other stuff will kill you or kill other people.
Sure. Yeah, you gotta get good stuff.
It's brutal. So when people think of Rolfing, if they're experienced with Rolfing or like an ART sort of thing, they kind of imagine somebody sticking their thumb or elbow into a joint, manipulating it, and a bunch of pain. So pain is the first thing people think of. Is that accurate, or like where do you see pain on the spectrum of Rolfing and manual therapy?
Yeah, so I try not to work into pain really. I kind of see that as counterproductive. Rolfing has a history of being known as being really intense and kind of painful. But a lot of Rolfers, a lot of the like new school practitioners have kind of moved away from that. We've realized we don't have to work deep to get great results with clients. So a lot of time when we're in pain and discomfort, it's fear avoidance, it's protection mechanisms. We hold and brace ourselves to protect ourselves and keep ourselves safe. And this affects our posture and our behavior and how we move. So if we're, causing more pain and we're taxing the nervous system more, then we're causing people to restrict and go further into those patterns, and it can be counterproductive.
You see, when you put it like that, it totally makes sense. But for some reason, people have this idea of like sports massages or, any sort of like manual therapy, like the no pain, no gain idea, right?
Right, yeah.
And it's so refreshing to see that there can be good things done without leaving bruises on people. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think no pain, more gain, really. We need more comfort and more ease in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that being said, just out of curiosity, are you saying no discomfort at all, or just no excruciating pain, yelling, screaming, Kelly Clarkson, levitating off the table?
Yeah, no kicking and screaming. A little bit of discomfort can be fine, but yeah, just not like really pushing that threshold of pain. For some people, they need kind of a kick in the ass. They need sometimes that strong elbow, to really feel themselves, because we tend to numb ourselves a lot, consciously and unconsciously.
With tequila.
Yeah. So yes, some people need that thing to drive it home and to really feel their bodies, but most people, I think, would benefit from the lighter, more comfortable touch.
Yeah, so I could see Tim, like if somebody has been behind on payments, that elbow is going to be a little extra deep in the tissue, you know.
Yep, sure. Don't
If
Don't
somebody's
mess with
behind
them.
on payments, Claude, you need to rework your business strategy. Just saying.
Well, you know what? That's fine. I send Bruno over there with the mallet, and he takes care of it.
Nice. There you go.
He's my VP of collections. Anyway, enough about Bruno. People shouldn't really know too much about him, but let's get into a bit of the biopsychosocial model.
Sure.
Yeah. So I just kind of want you to give a brief overview of that, just for folks and for Brian and I, because we are well, I'm a goldfish. Brian is.
I mean, I understand the psycho part of that, but that's about it.
he relates to the psycho part of it. That's it. Yeah. All right,
Yeah,
Tim.
so the biopsychosocial model is just taking into account the whole person, their whole being, and realizing that, you know, the client that you're working with, especially if you're doing manual therapy, they're not just like a hunk of meat. They're not a cadaver on your table. You're dealing with
Hopefully
with bullshit.
living biology. You know, a lot of these studies on like how manual therapy and foam rolling and all that works is based off of cadaver studies, really. So people think they can just go in with an elbow and release tissue and lengthen tissue, but I don't find that to be true. And you know, we're dealing with living biology and person who has fears and hopes and expectations and, you know, past traumas and injuries, and you know, so we have to take all this into account, and all these different areas affect our level of comfort or discomfort in our bodies. So the psycho would be like beliefs, perceptions, emotions, expectations, behaviors. Bio would be like tissue movement, load on tissues, pathology, their strength. And then social would be like their work life, family life, leisure activities, economic status, their education, and so forth. And all these areas impact how we feel and how our behavior kind of comes together.
So it's like a holistic approach to the person rather than like you said, a slab of meat on the table, which
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
I think
So
that's been missing a lot in a lot of different practices.
Right, for sure. So a lot of people, when they think of pain, they immediately think of tissues, bones, ligaments, joints, and they think that, you know, there must be something wrong in there. But really, our emotions, our perceptions, our beliefs, if we're not enjoying our work life or our relationships, or we're in bad economic status, if we're just not fulfilled, then this can all influence our level of comfort in our body.
Wow. So some people would say that like it would get into like chakras and stuff like that. Are you into any of that stuff or?
I went down that route for a while, and yeah, I've kind of gotten away from it. I think that it's out of context now. It comes from a culture that we don't really understand anymore. I don't think that we fully grasp what they were getting at with chakras. If you really dive into like studying the chakras, there's a lot more than just like, I think there's like 7 main chakras that people work with, but there's actually a lot more than that. It's all these different energy lines and naughty points, I think they call them. And
Brian's got a couple of those.
Claude, grow up. God.
I can't. I'm 30 and I can't. I'm sorry.
But yeah,
well,
I feel like we've kind of lost context of that. It comes from it's from a different culture, a different time, and it's hard to know what they were pointing at or what they were trying to achieve exactly.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it is that, you know, a lot of times our focus becomes that chakras are everything, and really it's just a tool to get back in touch with our body. And we in the Western world tend to like to take things in the Eastern world, bastardize them, turn them into very left-brained, scientific-based, and kind of lose the right brain creativity feeling part of what I my understanding is that it was originally about.
I couldn't have said any better myself, Brian.
For sure, absolutely, yeah.
Tim Norton, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
What is fascia?
So fascia is connective tissue. It wraps and binds around our whole body. It's an interconnected web, and it wraps our organs, our bones, everything really. And it is innervated, and it does have a level of plasticity, but I don't believe that we can actually manipulate it. And it is important because it's like our scaffolding, basically. It holds our body in place. It's thick, strong stuff. Like the IT band is the most well-known area of fascia. So that's connective tissue along the side of the thigh, and it's there to hold us upright.
And there's some different schools of thought on fascia and stuff like that. So in your opinion, your experience, there's some people that said they can release fascia and work with it and all of that. What's been your experience in all that?
I don't think that we can actually release it. And I would ask people who do think, people that are doing manual work, manual therapy, I would ask them, you know, if you think that you're lengthening or releasing tissues, how much do you know to lengthen it, and what place do you think it should be, and why do you think it should be there? And why would you want to deform someone else's tissues? I think that's out of our scope of practice to deform someone else's tissues. And I also believe that you would need a surgical scalpel to do that anyway.
I love those questions. Those are very, very astute questions that I think most practitioners are not asking, and just kind of going without putting a whole lot of thought into it.
Right, yeah. And a lot of manual therapists say that they can like manipulate SI joints, like they're supposed to nutate a certain way and like move a certain way as we walk through our gait. And sometimes people believe that they can kind of get out of alignment, and that manual therapists can put them back into alignment. And it's like, how do you know where that's supposed to be and what's optimal for that person? Because everyone has different shapes of their joints and different ranges of motion. And you know, classic thing is like femurs, like everyone has different femurs, so no one can squat or move the same. So not everyone is supposed to look and be a certain way, really. And we all have asymmetries, and they're natural.
Right on, right on. And speaking on to the fascia, the anatomy trains, the Thomas Myers, it's very popular now.
Right. Yeah.
Like, do you feel like that has some sort of useful benefit, or do you think it's all kind of going the wrong direction?
A little bit in the wrong direction, because his whole premise is that, you know, it's kind of like you pull the fascia here, and then you pull it from this opposite end, and then you can like straighten and realign the person. And I don't really believe that. I think
what changed that, Tim? Because I think like a lot of people kind of get into it. They're like, oh, that makes sense. And then they're like, wait a second, there's something more going on here. So did you just kind of learn that in school, or did you go through a process of thinking about it, working on it, and then seeing it just like not be real?
Yeah, I kind of went through my own process. I wasn't really taught this in school. I kind of got the classic Rolfing education, and in massage school I got the classic thing that we can manipulate fascia and tissues, and we can lengthen and hydrate them. So it's been mostly self-study. I did have one really great instructor in my phase 1 at the Rolf Institute, Michael Pollan, and he was kind of onto this and kind of started leaning me in this direction. So basically getting into pain science, studying, you know, the dynamic factors of pain and where it comes from, and evidence-based studies on tissue and fascia, and how like the evidence doesn't really line up with our ability to be able to manipulate it, really.
Yeah, it's really, it's interesting to hear different perspectives on it, because everybody has their own thing and their own practice, and just seeing how people get to that point, I think, is just fascinating. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I haven't looked at Tom Myers' anatomy trains work in a while. I think the one thing that does kind of make sense from it is like lines of movement through the body. So it kind of works all right for like looking how the body moves with ease and with flow. You know, we tend to have patterns. He has like these cross patterns that he looks at and stuff like that. Some of that makes sense, but the fascia manipulation stuff doesn't really make sense to me anymore.
Awesome. I think a lot of people are worried to talk about that too. So,
right.
Yeah. They're worried about rocking the boat, but it is good to open your mind to the possibilities of you know, different things. And just because it's popular doesn't always mean that it's correct or scientifically, you know, based.
Right. Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of these people have their whole careers invested in this, and they've built these. They
created a confirmation bias.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is what they've been teaching for so long, and then to be able to turn that around would be really challenging, because this is their main way of making money, and they base all their work on it.
Yeah. It's tough to, you know, do something for 10, 15, 20 years and be like, you know what, guys, I was wrong.
It actually takes a super strong person to do that, right? Imagine building a house with your own two hands, living in it for 20 years, and then just being like, oh, I got to tear this shit down.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And if you're familiar with Tom Myers, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Eric Dalton. He's kind of a colleague and kind of a friend of Tom Myers, I would say, maybe. But he's been teaching myofascial work and making like Rolfing kind of stuff accessible to massage therapists. And he studied with Ida Rolf. But he is actually kind of turning it around, and he's changing his story, getting away from the fascia stuff and talking about the nervous system more. And I have so much respect for him for doing that.
Yeah, because people don't realize how much the nervous system plays a part in pretty much everything, especially when it comes to muscles, and it's just insane what it can do. And if there's like a nerve blockage, oh man, you can get all sorts of fucked up. So.
Right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and our nerves, our nervous system is the only place that pain and discomfort can come from. So when you strip away everything else, you strip away the muscles, ligaments, joints, what you have is nerves, and they come directly out to the skin. So we don't need to go much deeper than the skin level to affect people and make them feel more comfortable in their body, really. So I'm focusing more on the skin level, like skin stretching, stuff like that, providing more mobility for the nerves.
That is wicked. That's like that's almost like some sci-fi stuff when you think about classic massage and manual therapy.
Right. Yeah.
Wicked. Brian, do you have any questions for young Tim Norton?
I've got a couple of them, actually, kind of going back with the IT band. How do you obviously there's kind of a couple schools of thought with, you know, most of IT band work being done on cadavers, which, you know, it's obviously a living tissue on a living human being. How do you go about working with the IT band, assuming you work with it and not against it?
I've seen videos of Tim biting on it. I'm not sure if it's a different Tim Norton, but Tim, feel free to answer it seriously and ignore me.
Yeah, I get out the sander and kind of sand my teeth and make them extra sharp and dig in there. Yeah, the IT band is really tough tissue. It's like tougher than a truck tire is what I've read, and it takes hundreds of pounds of pressure to affect it by even like 1%. And a lot of times when people are foam rolling it, or, you know, people are working in there with elbows, they're just compressing it more. And then there's the lateral quad muscle runs underneath the IT band. So you're compressing the IT band onto that muscle, really. And then you can get into some nerve stuff as well and kind of compress the nerves through there. So I like to work on the borders of the IT band and kind of get a sense of peeling it off the lateral quad muscles and peeling it off the hamstrings in the back on either side. And a lot of times if people are experiencing discomfort in the IT band area, it usually has something more to do with the hip or the knee. So kind of the lateral aspects of the IT band. So I think it's more advantageous to look look elsewhere, to look at the knee or the hip.
Yeah, I mean, where does it come? Where's the quote tightness coming from?
Right.
So, and then again, for our listeners that don't know, we were talking about the nervous system. What are some different symptoms that somebody might get from, we'll just say, for lack of a better word, an impinged nerve or nervous system?
Yeah, just kind of a sense of like a nagging tightness or tension, or it can be pain. Pain is pretty subjective, so it's different. Yeah. It's a dynamic experience for everyone.
The sciatica was one example that came up for me.
Right. Yeah. Finding different ways to move that will be pain-free and slowly getting back to your normal movements would be a good idea. Increasing your awareness of how you're moving, how you're holding and carrying yourself would all be very helpful. So basically the way the nervous system works is it's kind of like a car alarm system almost. It works as like an emergency brake, and it so if you're like in a parking lot and sometimes like one car alarm will go off and then like 5 other car alarms will go off. So those other cars are perceiving a threat that's not actually real. Like no one's breaking into those other cars. But
unless you're in Detroit.
Yeah. That's
why you always got to take a shot, man.
It's
I don't blame you. I would too.
It's because I'm close to Detroit. It's all about taking a shot. Sorry, we're talking about the reactive system, Tim. Before I shit on everything.
So yeah, there's no threat to those other cars, but they perceive a threat, so the alarm is going off. That's kind of how the nervous system works. It kind of becomes sensitized or perceives a threat, and then it kind of puts on the emergency brakes. So like stretching and foam rolling and manual therapy can kind of take off the emergency brake a little bit and, help the nervous system to decrease the perceived threat and feel comfortable, feel at ease. Our biology feels safe and comforted, and then we can get back to better movement.
Yeah, a lot of the times when people get injured or some sort of trauma happens, even after they heal, their nervous system and their brain still thinks that they're injured, so they keep getting those patterns, right? So
yeah. So we tend to like hold those areas in and protect them, whether we realize it or not, and then it shapes our behavior, it shapes our posture, and then we kind of stay that way. It affects how we move. So it's kind of a process of telling the nervous system, telling the brain, like, hey, this is safe. You don't have to protect it anymore. Everything's fine. Even if there was tissue damage, it's probably healed by now, because most tissue damage heals within like 6 months, sometimes a little bit longer, but it usually heals and everything's usually fine. But then we continue to protect and brace ourselves.
It's fascinating. What's interesting, I thought when you were saying that, I'm like, man, that even sounds like somebody who's been through like emotional pain, right? They hold it all in. Like it's totally. Brian, were you thinking the same thing?
Yes. Yes, I was.
Yeah, and then
working with you creates all kinds of emotional pain.
You're welcome, Brian.
And then, if someone sees you crying in public in our culture, people come up and say, oh, don't cry. And they mean well, but it's like, no, you should cry. You should express these emotions and get them out of your body.
Definitely. And that's one thing, like it's seen as sort of like this weakness to show your emotions, even though we are by nature emotional beings, right?
Right.
So it's like we're trying to just keep it all inside, and it's just like, what good does it really do? We're just lying to ourselves and the people around us, right? So
right, yeah. And then it shows up as, we're not as authentic. We don't show up and communicate as well in relationships. A whole host of chain reactions happen from there.
For sure, man. It's all connected, just different layers, man, of the same onion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh shit. So you're in Colorado, right?
Correct.
All right. That's like Rolfing HQ, from what I understand.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the Rolf Institute is based here. So a lot of Rolfers here. Yeah.
All right. And how do you find that impacts your practice, being surrounded by so many people practicing a similar art, like how do you how do you find yourself?
I find it inspiring. It's cool to see what other people are doing, especially within Rolfing, because like I said, it's not really techniques. A lot of people think it's like specific techniques, but it's really a framework and philosophy, and people come to it from all sorts of different backgrounds. It's not just people with a background in body work. So like yoga teachers, personal trainers, physical therapists come to Rolfing. So it's cool to see like what different directions people go with it. I know some people that teach yoga classes from the framework and perspective of structural integration. So that's pretty interesting.
Really?
Yeah. And
how do they I guess they base their poses around what they learned?
right. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Interesting. Never heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people think yoga is like the end all be all. And, you know, if you just do enough yoga, then your body will become perfect. But
No, you need to be a vegan too, Tim.
that wear mala beads and say namaste. But yeah, I mean, no modality is perfect. And I mean, there's a lot of great things about yoga, but I would say a lot of yoga teachers miss out on some alignment pieces and some mobility pieces. You're kind of stuck in one plane. It's not very multi-dimensional. The planes you move in yoga, and you're still on a flat surface. I think, you know, we're meant to be barefoot. We're meant to be moving over diverse terrain. I think feet are really important. So I think our feet should be adaptable to different terrain, like moving over stones and rocks and roots. We have like, I think, over 30 joints in our foot. So a lot of opportunity for movement there. And our feet should be like almost as adaptable as our hands, really.
So what I'm hearing you say is that yoga should be done barefoot in the mountains while moving.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, I thought Tim just wanted everybody to do CrossFit barefoot, but okay, all right, I see. That's, you know what, that's interesting. Let's talk about feet a little bit more, because I think it's really a topic people don't really touch. In your practice, what do you do? Like, do you always work on the feet? Is it something if only somebody complains about it? Like, how do you work with it, Tim?
It depends, you know, how many sessions people are doing. I recommend people get at least 3 sessions with Rolfing. The Classic 10 series is optimal because we're going through the whole body in a systematic way. But anyway, 10 series, you definitely work the feet a lot. And so not every session I work with the feet, but definitely every client I work with, I'm going to work with their feet. They're our foundation for our structure. Anything that's going on down there is going to affect movement up the chain. So if you're kind of walking on eggshells, or your feet are kind of blocky and like kind of like blocks and don't have as much movement, it's going to affect movement further up.
What can people do at home to kind of take a couple of steps to improve their feet?
I would say like taking a lacrosse ball, tennis ball, whatever feels like it's getting in there, but it's not painful, and kind of rolling your foot around, just to increase your perception of your foot, and proprioception. Not thinking about like releasing fascia or tissues in your foot, but just increasing awareness of like the different arches. So you have 3 arches in your foot. So differentiating those arches with the ball, and just getting better awareness of your feet and better connection through your feet, and making your brain more aware of your feet and their connection to the ground. Getting barefoot as much as possible, moving over diverse terrain. If you don't have access every day to like walking barefoot out in nature, it may seem kind of weird, but a thing I've done, like living in apartments before, was taking like a box or something that can contain a bunch of like river rock or stones, and putting them in that box, and then just standing over it and moving your feet around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Not sharp ones, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
So something that I've done is actually I've gotten a grounding mat that actually plugs into the grounding outlet of your electrical outlet. and that definitely seems to help. I live on a third floor apartment, and I definitely need to be more grounded than I currently am. So that's something that I use.
Nice.
Yeah. I find a lot of people though, when they first get that lacrosse or golf ball or whatever on their foot, they find a spot and it's just, even with the slightest pressure, it just kills them.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So would you just say kind of tread lightly over there?
Yeah. I would say like work into it slowly and patiently. And again, like not really thinking about releasing that, because we can't really release it, but just increasing awareness through there and kind of thinking about, why it might feel that way, why it might feel so sensitive. And then over time, it will become less sensitive and mobility will increase. The nervous system will realize it's safe and the emergency brakes will come off, and, the foot will feel like it's opening up and is more adaptable. Also, you can buy like toe spreaders. So like these things that you can put on in between your toes and kind of spreads them out.
Like women get for pedicures?
Yeah, for sure. Like actually, like I've literally
or maybe men too. I don't know. I mean, not me, but maybe.
Yeah.
Not yet, Brian.
Not yet.
Now, Tim, where are other places that people can start to feel awareness? Or where would you recommend for folks to kind of do the same thing that they'd be doing with their feet, but that's very important nowadays?
I would say the breath.
The breath, okay.
Yeah, I think breath awareness is really important. I think, we're in stress and tension a lot, and we tend to restrict or hold our breath, and we don't even realize it. And so our scalene muscles, these little muscles in the front of our neck, are actually accessory muscles to our lungs and assist in breathing. So a lot of times our breath kind of is clamped down, and then we kind of feel a sense of tension or tightness in the front of the neck. So yeah, just bringing more awareness to our breath. It brings us more into a parasympathetic state, more relaxed state, and brings more ease to the whole system.
All right. And like, let's say for a beginner, like what would you say? Just focus on breathing in, breathing out, focus on your belly button moving.
Just slow, deep breaths, as deep into the diaphragm as possible. Getting full dynamic breath, like full 360 degrees of expansion in the rib basket. So front to back, side to side, and focusing more on the exhalation, just fully exhaling all of your air, and then the body kind of takes care of the inhalation. So I would focus more on the exhalation.
Awesome.
Also, an interesting little trick you can do is if you're standing, kind of find a sweet spot in your feet, kind of rock front to back, side to side. Feel where you're standing your tallest. Like if you imagine you're standing underneath a waterfall and you have that pressure and force coming down, how would you stand strong and tall underneath the pressure of that waterfall? And then placing your pinky fingers on your ASIS, so those pointy things in the front of your hips, and then your thumbs underneath the bottom of your ribs, and then breathing there and expanding that space between your pinky and your thumbs, and then adding a light traction to it. So on the inhale, bring your thumbs up more, and then just keeping your ribs kind of tractioned up and increasing that space between your hips and your ribs, if that makes sense.
Yeah. To me, it totally does. That's awesome. I'm going to use that possibly today with someone.
Nice.
Awesome. Brian, I'm losing my voice here. Brian, would you like to ask any questions, or Tim, would you like to rant at all, or? I feel like we could head to wrap up, but I feel like we're missing something. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's up to you guys.
I'm not sure what other directions you'd like to go.
Well, this podcast, the longer it goes, the direction it goes is down.
This is very true.
Yeah, we tend to start rambling, so I'm just like, man, like we could keep talking, we could invite Tim back, like So I'm of the mind that we can kind of start wrapping up. If something else comes up, awesome. But
Cool.
usually I start rambling like I am right now, and that I don't think anyone wants to hear that. I listened to a couple podcasts, and I'm like, man, this Claude guy's fucking annoying.
Yeah.
So cutting Claude off and moving into the wrap up. What is your current area of study? What are you kind of geeking out on at the moment?
Mostly natural movement, the nervous system, and pain science. But I mean, I don't always like to be specific about pain science. It's science really, which isn't perfect. You know, a lot of scientific studies are biased because we're human beings and we all have biases. But definitely taking evidence from studies that make sense and, you know, working with that.
You have any specific books or practitioners that you're really focusing on at the moment?
Katie Bowman's work.
Oh yeah.
Her newest book, Movement Matters, is an excellent book. I'm really enjoying that.
Okay.
And then if you want to get into pain science stuff, Lorimer Mosley has a bunch of great books and information on that.
Okay, not familiar with them, so definitely have to check that out.
But yeah, I'd say that's mostly what I'm working with. So yeah, just combining a lot of different perspectives of just getting back to natural movement and kind of ancestral health and wellness. I'm into Daniel Vitalis and his kind of rewilding philosophy and perspective, you know, becoming a feral human being, basically.
Like Brian.
I was going to say like me and Claude.
Yeah, like both of us. I project a lot.
You do.
So, Tim, have you read Katie's book, Move Your DNA?
Yes, yeah, excellent book.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's something else. We've been looking at possibly getting her on the podcast, but
yeah, I was going to suggest having her on for sure. Yeah, that was the first book of hers that I got into, and I think her latest book, Movement Matters, is just huge.
Yeah, and her stuff is very like accessible because like I'm able to read it and I don't get confused, so I'm really thankful for that.
So it's written at a second grade level?
Third, Brian.
Oh man!
And a lot of the stuff she says, it just seems like common sense, and for me, but we like just skip over it. We don't even think about it, and then it's like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, there's genius in that kind of, I don't even want to call it simplicity, but in how she frames it, it's just like, oh yeah, of course that's right. Meanwhile, like you never thought about it before. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Beautiful. So what purchase under $100 has most benefited you personally or your practice in the last year?
That's a tough one. I would say
the IT band stretcher that you got on Amazon.
Yeah, totally. Set that bad boy up and stretch it every different direction. I would say pictures actually of nerves. Those are really the only anatomy pictures I really work with anymore. Just showing people the nervous system and how it's connected throughout the body and then to the brain, and how if we strip away everything else, that's all we have left. And that tends to click for people. And those are really cheap too, so that's always good.
Right. Yeah, being able to explain and educate and, you know, help people to better understand their own body is much better than just doing something to someone.
Exactly. I think the education piece is huge. Like, I'm actually kind of almost getting away from like tissue-based work so much and just educating more. And I think that has just as powerful as an impact, if not more, than, you know, doing a bunch of tissue work on people. It kind of puts the locus of control back within the client and empowers them to take control of their body and their mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some people that just want somebody else to do something to them, and then there's other people that are open to empowerment, if you will.
Right, yeah, and I think that's crucial is, you know, the client taking an active role in their health and well-being. And I think that's when real changes start to occur rather than passive treatments, you know, just going in and getting like an adjustment, or just going in and getting needles put in you, like taking an active role and taking ownership of your body and your mind.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people discount that. So
yeah. I mean, when we do something to someone, it's no different than the old medical model. So
right, exactly, yeah. And getting people moving more, you know, a lot of times people get into areas of pain and then they kind of stop moving and they kind of withdraw, and then they find themselves kind of depressed, and then they withdraw from other areas of life. They don't feel like going out as much, and being as active socially. So just getting people moving again and telling them that it's all right, that it's safe, and that they're going to be fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you need more questions, Brian?
I've
got some questions in my head.
Yeah, have at it.
All right, Tim, if you could place a billboard anywhere in the world and you could put anything on it, what would you put?
I would say you are your own best friend. So it doesn't make sense to beat yourself up or be unkind to yourself. You know, you wouldn't want to say really crappy things to yourself if you're your own best friend. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I'd also say that this whole experience of reality in life, like there's no way that we can possibly comprehend it. None of us have a clue what's going on, and that's fine. So let's just help each other out and make the best of it.
Awesome.
I dig it.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it. It's important because a lot of people have this self-talk where they're just like, oh, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, would you talk to your best friend like that? Like, unless you have like a fucked up relationship.
Right.
It's like, why do that? Like,
yeah, like, if my friend talked to me the way that I sometimes talk to myself, we'd be throwing down.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's really important. It's also bringing about a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Right.
And just projecting that into the world. So, no, man, like, love yourself, people. Damn it. Now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of us want to have this sense of control, but really, like, the universe is inherently chaotic and there is no control. There's no such thing. And I think just becoming comfortable with that, and, you know, I think that would help ease a lot of stress and frustration, and, you know, we could all be kinder to each other, knowing that we're all in this weird experience that there's no way we could possibly understand. And that's fine.
Yeah, we're just spinning through space on a rock at 30, you know, what is it, 30,000 miles per second or something?
Yeah.
Nothing terrifying at all.
Well, when you put it like that, Claude.
That's the way my mind works.
That sounds terrifying, yeah.
It kind of does, yeah. Just there's giant rocks flying by us every day. Like, oh no, but you know what? It just goes to show that every day is a gift, and we should not take that for granted at all.
For sure, yeah.
Before I sound too preachy, I will give Brian the microphone again.
Preach, brother, preach.
Hallelujah.
So Tim, besides me and Claude, who else would you want to hear on this podcast, and what would you want to ask them or hear them talk about?
Yeah, again, like I was saying before, I'd say Katie Bowman, talking about her new book, Movement Matters, and how we outsource our movement. And we're just not moving as much. We don't have to create things. We don't have to, you know, process our own food or build shelter for ourselves anymore. So we're just really missing out on dynamic movement. So having her on talking about dynamic movement, I think would be great. And then also I mentioned Daniel Vitalis. I think he'd be great to have on and talk about rewilding and becoming a feral human and getting back to ancestral practices.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll definitely reach out to both of them. Now, how can our listeners find out more about you?
So my website is inherentvitality.com. And then from there I have social media links. I haven't been as active as I'd like to be, but that's in the process of changing. I'm working on putting together a series of audio and video, kind of a package of guides for better movement and guides on body awareness and meditation. So guiding you through body awareness meditations and then movement practices, self-care to feel better in your body and mind. So that should be ready in about a week or two. So I have a box at the bottom of my website at inherentvitality.com. And if you sign up for my newsletter there, as soon as that's ready to come out in the next week or two, you'll have that sent to you.
Yep. So it'll be ready by the time this podcast airs. So
awesome. Great.
Beautiful. And if you are in the Boulder, Colorado area, by all means, please reach out to Tim. I'm speaking for you, Tim. I'm sure you would love to hear from our listeners.
Yeah, I'm not a great salesperson. I just enjoy what I do, but don't like the salesy end of it. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, all right, Tim.
I think. Wait, Brian. I think we're missing a very important question.
All right.
I don't know if it's that important, but
really,
who is the first person that comes to mind, or what is your definition of the optimum human?
I wouldn't say there's one person or like an archetype for that really, except for just anyone who's working to increase their self-awareness of themselves. I think self-awareness is key, emotional intelligence, and anyone working to put their missions and their passions into reality in ways that help others do the same. So, being the strongest version of yourself and helping others to be the strongest version of themselves as well.
Thank you, Elliot Hulse.
Yeah, kind of ripped that off. Yeah,
hey, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So.
Well, Tim, thank you for joining us today. And
thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of it, and hopefully they'll really look at themselves and some introspection, get some balls on their feet. Oh, that didn't sound right. Oh.
Claude, you're cut off. You're now a silent partner on this thing.
Oh man, just memories of Thailand. Anyway,
on that
Tim,
note,
thank you for coming on. Brian, thank you for co-hosting. Claude, thank you for co-hosting. Listeners, thank you for listening. And we'll talk to you later, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Absolutely.
You too, man.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Human's Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.